Alright guys, first week of March. Me and Matt wanted to do a review on the Lexus and tell you guys the pros and cons of hitting 1,000 horsepower. Behind me is my 95 Lexus SC300. It's been a very long-term project, about a decade now, and we're right there touching the 4-digit mark. And there have been a lot of breaks, a lot of drama, a lot of issues with it. Hitting 1,000 horsepower is cool, but it comes with its trials and tribulations. So I'll break down the build a little bit for you guys.
The interior, it has RSX Type S front seats, stock SC300 rears. Everything is wrapped in a Mercedes red leather. IS300 steering wheel. I have an F-150 shifter in it, but we'll get back on that in a second. SRT8 Cherokee Brembo brakes. It is now a 3/4 stroker 2JZ with a 7875 on it, built head, 280 cams. Now has a 6R80 Mustang trans in it with a 8.8 with an Eaton True Track. After about 3 different motor setups, I was gonna do a stock twin turbo 2J swap. Mind you, nobody was doing it at the time that I did this. So there was no knowledge out there, no real wiring diagrams, no real companies that provided anything that would suffice for this car. And that I went from stock 2J setup to a compound turbo, high compression, because I wanted to do a mile car. And then the stroker came out, and that's all I wanted. I wanted the stroker and the biggest turbo I can bolt on it, which at the time was a Turbonetics T76 Hurricane Bonita. And that turbo was just way too much for this car, between the stroker and the hit of that turbo being a cast wheel. It was just something else. But so the car was a project for 10 years, never drove it any time in between. Had the car into a million pieces for a decade, and somehow it ended up back together, even after working on hundreds and hundreds of customer cars. But, you know, I met Matt, and Matt was the real reason that I finished it. You know, he was, what would it take to get that thing back on the road? And I told him how far I was, and I was only maybe 2 weekends away from getting it done. And he's like, my main thing was tune, you know. And this car had a V1 in it originally when I did the build, because that's all that was available. And we ended up finding out that the injectors that I would need and everything else, technology's advanced way too far, that we had to swap everything out. So I ended up going with Bosch 2200cc injectors. I wanted a Bosch, an OEM injector. And we ended up doing the V2, and everything ended up being compatible. Matt got it running. And first day we took it out, we cruised it around, Matt left, and I decided to go out and hit some boost with it, and threw a clutch through the bell housing. And I don't know if any of you have ever experienced that. That is a freaky feeling. Something could be chopping off your legs any second, you know. But that was the first real experience with a close to 4-digit car. We started going down the rabbit hole of issue after issue, you know, trying to put the power down reliably. And me being me, I had a second clutch at the house, another ACT 6-puck, same clutch that just blew up, thinking that it was maybe a bad clutch. But turns out that that night I ended up going back out after I swapped the clutch out and blew another clutch through the bell housing. So I ended up ordering one of the spec twin disc heavy clutches, and that one ended up holding the power. But the T76 was just too hard of a hit. Every time I got traction, I was breaking the rear end. I'm on my 5th rear end now. I went through 4 Toyotas before I ended up going to a Ford 88. I did the Gratis 88 swap kit with a Explorer 88 with the Eaton True Track. Then I was able to go out and beat on it some more and snap the drive shaft, then fixed the drive shaft, and then broke the tail housing off the trans. Actually, a week before TRC was supposed to come out and do an intro on the car. Then I swapped another R154 in it and went to the track, and I totally broke that trans in half at the track first time we got traction. But you know, that it just goes to show every single time you get traction with a 1000+ horsepower car, your weakest point will show. And it's just going down the rabbit hole of what could be next and chasing that next weak part. We ended up doing a 6R80 like Matt's IS. After I drove his car is like perfect stock form, everything you would want in a daily driver, but I really needed something to hold up, and the 6R80s have really proven to be really fast and really reliable, and it also gives me trans brakes. So now we're slowly converting the car from a wannabe daily driver to a full track car that I can enjoy on the street, and that's what we're really trying to achieve, is something I can take to the meets and cruises, but be able to run a high 8, low 9 car.
So what do you like most about the car? What's your favorite thing?
The power. It has an unbelievable power range. Down low, it's real torquey, being 3.4, and up high, it just screams. It doesn't matter what RPM you're at, you're in your seat.